Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
All right, we're live. Jason Red, welcome back to the podcast. This is your third appearance this year. You're starting to become kind of a superstar.
Yeah, I know you've totally made me that. I never would be where I am in life without you.
Yeah,
that's why I grew the beard out, just to start now establishing my dominance.
Yeah, because you had the mustache there for a while, and then you realize that I can't grow a beard, so you have to grow. You know, that's a very man to man full beard.
Yeah, they don't get much fuller than this. Well, maybe my mustache is stellar too, but I'll let you keep that title.
Well, your beard's getting a little gray though. You're starting to age a little bit. It's starting to get a little gray.
It's wisdom and stress. Yeah, that's where it comes from. I was noticing, like, Nathan always comments on my beard or compliments my beard, and Nathan's about 5 or 6 years older than me, and I realized that he has way less gray hair than I do in his beard. So I've also lived a wild life, Beau. So that probably has something to do with it.
Yeah, there's yeah, and then now with owning multiple businesses and going through all that, like, yeah, that doesn't make it go the other way.
No, I don't think so.
She's got sirens going on out there.
Yeah, cops coming by the shop here. Low crime area though. I don't know what that was for. Don't hear that much.
Yeah. No, I was surprised to hear that. But anyways, Jason, thanks for coming back on the show here. So obviously, I guess not obviously, but for anybody listening, Jason and I talk on a daily basis, sometimes more than I'd like, from the Timber Ninja aspect. And but we talk deer hunting a lot, even though we focus a lot on company things and everything, but we talk a lot about deer hunting. And you've this season kind of started off a little bit weird for you, as far as you were supposed to go on some Western trips and supposed to go to Alaska, and because of business, essentially, it didn't end up working out, and you were kind of down in the dumps about it. But you seem to pick up pretty good during deer season and get out in the woods quite a bit and put some serious effort in the mountains there.
Yeah. I mean, I always try to plan my hunting season around, like, doing some type of, out of state, like, big adventure trip, whether it be going out west or going to Alaska. And I'd been planning to do this Alaskan blacktail solo Kodiak hunt with my longbow for a couple years. And I put all my deposits down in the beginning of the year, booked my air charter, had everything worked out. Had a buddy that was supposed to go that I really trusted, so it wasn't going to be solo. And then he backed out, and I was still committed. But then it got down to time to leave, and we really just had so much going on with Timber Ninja that I just didn't feel comfortable leaving for 14 days. So I had to not, do that trip, which sucks. I mean, it sucks mentally, man. Doing big trips like that are that high value, as far as risk and everything. Like, there's a lot of thought and mental preparation that goes into that. I mean, you've done them, like, you're out there by yourself, or even with a couple people, it's still a big adventure when you go to Alaska, because you get dropped off. And doing it solo, especially in bear country, man, there's a lot of stuff you got to think about, risk analysis. And I'd been toying with that for a few years, and finally committed that I was game to do it by myself, or with somebody that I felt was very capable. And but he fell through, and I'd really gotten myself right to go by myself and spend that many days there. And yeah, it sucks, man, to have to let it up. But I'm not too old. I want to do it next year. And that's my plan. And then when that fell through, I was like, oh, I'll just throw in an elk hunt and go, elk hunting for 7-8 days or something. And got ready to leave. Actually was leaving, packed up on the road, and some stuff went down at Timber Ninja that I just, like, I need to be here. So I pulled myself out. That's kind of sacrifices you have to make when you run a small business, until it gets to the point where it's just printing money, right? It's on autopilot. Yeah. But, once I had to do that, man, I just dedicated myself to going all in on whitetail hunting this year, which I normally do, but I was like, I'm gonna go out of state, hunt a couple states, and I'm gonna focus on some deer here at home. I've been hunting the same deer here at home for 4 years, which we can talk about that, later on. But we all know people that have history with those types of deer, like how much of a mental challenge that is, going after the same target buck for so long. And so, yeah, I mean, I hit it hard. I always do a lot of scouting in preseason and summer, but I did a lot more this year and really wanted to set myself up for a very successful year. And honestly, like, I didn't kill a lot of deer. I mean, I killed one buck so far this year, but I had some great hunts and great experiences. Like I did I did 2 out of state. I went to 2 different states multiple times. One of them one time, but I had encounters and opportunities on mature bucks and all those. And for me, when you get them in that range, I feel like that's a big success for me. And killing them, if you're able to capitalize on that, it's just ice on the cake. But overall, like I feel, I still got some season left here, and I'm focused on a deer I've been after. But if my season was to end today, like I would feel very happy with the season I've had.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I want to go back to what you were talking about with Alaska. And, as much as that sucked that you had to pull out, I think overall it was a smart decision, because when you can't go into one of those hunts not fully mentally there and ready for it. And if you're going to be stressed out about business or whatever else it is, name the thing at home that you're thinking about, and you're not aware in bear country or the weather or whatever's happening, like that can put you in a pretty rough spot to be able to do. That's not simple.
No, I mean, I think, I was talking to you, and I was down to the point, like, my plan was to ship all my stuff out a month in advance. But when I started seeing things coming apart, I was like, well, I'll just carry everything with me. And I'd gotten to a point, I was going to make a last minute decision. And by doing that, I was also going to make I was going to leave some stuff behind that I think could have put me in a bad place, just trying to make it happen. Like some things I was like, if I have this, I know I can survive, but this would make it a lot better. And it may be a little bit, it could turn into an epic, but, I think I'm going to be good. And that's not a good way of going about doing something. I'm not trying to be some tough guy or something, but like I've done a lot of risky things in rock climbing and stuff like that where you have to do a lot of risk analysis. And I felt like I was really pushing myself to the limit of trying to make it happen when things just weren't setting up. And yeah, you got to be prepared in those situations, because you could get injured and you have bad weather, fogged in or whatever, and a plane can get to you and you can sit there and bleed out, or what.
Yeah.
Little things happen in the backcountry that can be, when you're that far disconnected, can turn into a big situation for you.
Oh, and in a short amount of time, like that's it, you're exactly right. And it's just one of those things. And, being by yourself is a whole nother world. Cause I mean, I know how alone you feel, even when you're with a couple of people, when you get dropped off like that and you're like, oh, did I forget this? What's going, I forgot to send this email. I forgot to do this. And your mind starts going in wrong directions. And I was telling you, even when I was in Alaska, at first I was like, I felt anxious, and I was not in the same situation you were, but 3 days in, then I got settled into what I was doing. But I also had, the gear necessary. I had, other people there, and was able to move forward with it. But there's something to be said about that when, it sounds pretty cool to own a company in the hunting industry, but that also comes with the aspect of, okay, most people are, but whether we like it or not, most people are buying their products right before the season. And so that when you're making whitetail hunting products, mobile hunting products, that means that, August and September are crazy. And being a small company, there's not like a lot of people that can backfill for some of those different things. And, as a company, those are things that, we're working on to make better, so you can go on those trips and do that. And I guess I should say too, and I don't think I've ever actually said it on the podcast, but I'd had it in a post on social media. But as of this year, that I came on with you guys as an actual partner in Timber Ninja, and I'm running the marketing and everything there is everyone's, heard the ad at the beginning and heard you on here before, but, so I'm more ingrained in the business and seeing how it's going and trying to run a small business and grow a small business in what we think is the right way. That's obviously our interpretation of it, but it's not easy, and it takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of effort to do so.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're going to do it right, I think you got to have a really solid foundation. It takes a lot of time to build, and but when you have that good solid foundation, that's when it becomes easy to be able to let go and leave and not be stressed. And I think a lot of people they see the end result of starting a business, but they don't understand what it takes to get to that. It's like you see a basketball player on TV making millions of dollars playing a sport that he dreamed about, but nobody ever sees the hours that were put in before he got to that point. And that's the way, because I mean, at the end of the day, most small businesses fail within 5 years, which we're about to be out of that 5 year point. And, if you're pushing the envelope hard enough, you're always going to feel like you're not performing as well as you need to, and you're always on the verge of failure. So I don't know if that'll ever go the way, to be honest.
No, I don't. No, I think when you have that mindset, it doesn't. Because looking at it from when we started off the year and we had these goals for Timber Ninja and everything, and they were some pretty big goals, and coming up towards the end of the year here, we didn't necessarily hit all of those goals, but when you look back at it, it's like we did really good. But when you have these expectations that are super high, sometimes it gets in your own head, is that until you can step back and look at it, it's like, okay, we actually did better than we thought.
Yeah. And I think, people need to look at that, and, we probably don't need to spend a ton of time talking business and entrepreneurship or, motivational ethics. But like when I was because most people want to talk about hunting, hear hunting stories, but when I was like at a pro level of racing bikes, I had a coach, and he would make me put a goals list every year for what I wanted to achieve in that year. And he wanted it in 3 different tiers. And the highest tier he had was what he called a shooting the stars goal. Like for me, shooting the stars goal was to try to win be a national champion. And that was a goal, like in my head, like I knew I wasn't quite ready, but his theory, and I think this applies to business and it can apply to hunting or whatever, is if you set a really, really high goal that's out of reach and that's what you're focused on, it makes the other goals a lot easier to reach. And that's like what you just talked about. Like we had really high goals for this year, and we got to the end of the year and we didn't hit that highest goal that we had, but we had dominated coming up through that stuff that was honestly probably more realistic. And then you learn from where you made mistakes, and then in a couple of years you potentially can hit that shooting the stars goal if you keep putting that work in and the effort and the risk. You got to take risks to be successful too.
Well, and I mean that translates to hunting so well. Like I mean that's the way I look at deer hunting. Here in Pennsylvania, like I've always, at least in the last, I don't know how many years, but like I'll have this goal of a particular buck or a caliber of deer, and like I focus on that, and I might end up shooting something that's lesser of a size or whatever than that, but it's still really good for the area or whatever your goals are, and I kind of do it that way. Like I would, from the beginning, I'd be happy with the mid-level, but I try to set my goals for the highest level, and then sometimes come in between there. And that's just fine.
I agree 100%. Like I have a goal of killing like a buck here in the 140s to 150s, and because it's hard to find those here, like they are kind of a 140, 150 where I live, and anywhere in this part of Appalachia is essentially a world-class deer, for our region. There's not many of them that come out. So that's a goal. And I know that's always been a goal of Nathan's, and, him looking for that goal, he ended up killing a 172, but it was just because he had that goal and he was focused on finding that deer and spent countless hours looking for something in that class. And he found it after, I forgot, he's been hunting where he lives for 40 seasons or something like that.
42 years, I think he said.
42 years it's taken.
Does that sound right? No, he doesn't seem that old.
No, he's 40. It's about right. He's 47, 48. So he could have started hunting at 7 or 8. Yeah, it's about right.
Okay.
So you think
Gotcha.
about it, took that long, but yeah, if that target's always out there, you're going to be pounding and look for it, man. Whether it's business, hunting, hobbies, relationships, whatever. It's good to have goals.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good topic to lead us in here, and especially with the beginning of the year coming up, always seems like the time for goals and goal setting and being able to try to better yourself in whatever aspect of life that comes to. But one thing that, so when I came down to North Carolina for the Timber Ninja open house, I went out with you. You wanted to show me the area that you were looking for this deer you've been chasing for 4 years, and get to hike in there and see it and see how it compares to the stuff that I'm used to. And it was really cool to get to see the type of terrain and environment, because like North Carolina, the mountains that you're hunting is like they're tall, they're big mountains, big terrain. And what I saw was like a definite challenge right off the bat, and we've talked about this before, but is the fact that there's no timber cutting or logging or anything there. So like those deer can move like crazy depending on what mass crop is doing, depending on foliage on the trees, because it reduces cover quite a bit as the season goes on. Like that was really interesting to me.
Oh yeah, man, it's a wild place to hunt, man. It's we have really good deer, man, and it's so fun hunting them. It's an adventure, but it's definitely not a place I recommend somebody coming on an out of state hunt. Because it's going to take you a lot of time to. I've been up here for 14 years, and feel like I'm just starting to like understand, and I'm getting a way more consistent with being able to find the bigger, older deer.
Yeah.
But it's came from, man, and I love things. I mean, I am a masochist. I like pain and suffering, and hunting our way we do. That's what it is. You got it. I don't like the deer that I took you to show you that area. That deer I've been hunting for 4 years. Like I never named deer. I think it's corny. No offense to anybody. But I have named this deer. I named it Everest because I feel like the years I've been hunting that deer, I've every year I've put in enough miles and enough elevation gain and loss that I could at least summit Everest one time a year. And
I love that.
so like, I've dedicated, and this year, like I have enough intel that I feel like I felt very confident that I'm going to be able to get on him. And I really thought I was going to be able to do it early season, but I got my butt handed to me early season this year. Like I was talking to Johnny and Nathan about October, because I'd hunted so hard, because our season opens in September. I hunted that deer so hard early season, and I just felt whipped, even in October. But this year, though, I saw way more deer than I ever have. I'd passed some bucks. I passed two 8-points that were 3-year-old, 115-inch deer, which here I would say 90% of bow hunters and hunting national forests here would have shot those deer in a heartbeat. So I had a good year. It's just I could not get on the deer I was after, and so I'm still after him. I've got him pinned now. Like I'm just waiting here in the next week or two. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, you like this late time frame anyways. I mean, you've talked about it with me before. You always like that late bow season, December time frame down in North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I historically hunting and killing and looking at trail camera footage, like I find that most of our mature deer move between December 13th and up until early January. Our season closes on the 31st, but I see more mature deer on their feet for that quote unquote second rut, because our peak rut's around Thanksgiving. So that really, essentially it seems like there's like a 28-day or so window between your typical peak rut until like what they call the second rut is what I've noticed. And like looking at trail cam history, it definitely shows that it's about a 28-day cycle from there. And on the front side of that, I see mature deer moving. You'll see them a day or two moving around November the 1st. And I always get good deer on camera around November 15th, 16th. So it's kind of like that thing. Like when I go out Midwest, like, let's say Ohio, the peak around there, based on biologists, they say is around 6, and that's when all deer are running, going crazy. But you tend to see the mature deer on their feet around, right there. In the Midwest, you'll see a good move around October the 15th every year. If there's a cold front there, you'll see some big deer get killed and get on their feet. And then it seems like if that cold front hits at the end of October, that's when a lot of big deer hit the ground too. But if you look at Ohio, for instance, the big buck registry thing, you look at their bigger deer, most of them are killed around Halloween or they're killed around Thanksgiving. So it's like before and then after that peak time. And I think that really correlates in a lot of regions when you look at it. Like, I don't keep journals or anything. It's kind of like my trail cameras. I don't keep a pin where they're at. I just know in my head where everything is. Same thing with my like history of hunting animals. Like, it's all in my head, or the pictures that I keep. So yeah, I get stoked for this time of year. It's hard though, man. When you've been busting your butt and all year and you get this late season, like getting that extra energy to go up and start doing, long sits again, and it's cold and quiet. How, those winter woods are desolate places, dude.
Yeah, man, this is the, I guess, first time, and I can't remember how many years where I have a tag going into late season, and for us in Pennsylvania, which opens the day after Christmas. And I'm really not looking forward to it. Like, it's such a tough time to kill a mature deer, and they've been pressured. Where I'm at, they've been pressured like crazy all through gun season, and a lot of them have so much stress from the gun seasons. They're dropping their antlers, and like they're just like, and then. But there is also a time frame here where we're almost like because we're ahead of you a little bit as far as the rut, but almost like a third rut that I'll see come in if you get like where some of those fawns are coming in to estrus in that first week of January. And Johnny really likes taking advantage of that time, and he likes tracking them with the flintlock. I don't think I'll probably take the bow out versus the flintlock, as far as I just still don't feel confident enough of that going off when I need it to. But, like one thing that I'll probably be targeting on is areas that, not really hunting a specific deer, but one areas that I have historical trail camera knowledge on that bucks seem like they bachelor up in areas that have thermal cover and some of these slopes that are. And I found a bunch of beech nuts and black cherries they were feeding on here in December, and I'm like, that'll probably continue through the late season. I'll focus on that. But then other areas that have a lot of good acorn crop and have higher deer populations, because there's that chance of them coming in, later, as far like maybe some does that weren't bred that are coming in for the third cycle or whatever. And I honestly have, at the time of recording this, it's December 12th, and I've, the rifle season closed on Saturday, and I had the best rifle season that I had. Well, I actually have never hunted a full rifle season because I've always been out of vacation for work at that point if I had a tag, and so I'd only would hunt weekends. But I guess I've been just kind of taking a little bit of a break here before I get out in the woods, but just going to get out and try to scout and find the sign and where I think they're going to be feeding at, and really try to play the weather a lot. Do you play a lot with weather as far as when you're going to hunt in late season?
I try to, man. Like, because after I killed on Thanksgiving, I've kind of taken some time off, because like we get two deer tags here, 2 buck tags, and the deer I've been after, like after about year 2, I lost all interest in shooting him with a gun. Like, I felt like I had that amount of connection in history, that I wanted to make it as hard as I could for myself. Or not as hard, I shoot traditional equipment, but I told myself I was not going to shoot that deer with anything but a bow. So like, I've resisted going to gun hunt that area, and focusing on with the bow, which our bow season opened up again Sunday. And we had a weather pattern come through this weekend. We had a lot of rain over the weekend, and I felt last night was going to be because we have a cold front coming in too. Like, yesterday's high was 42. So I went out yesterday evening, but it's just not quite right. I feel like next week, there's a chance this week a little bit, but I feel a lot more confident about next week as we get closer to that, that 17th to 23rd is just when I've seen the most activity. So regardless of weather, I think I'm just going to be there. Not all day sits, because I don't typically see them moving as much midday as they do in the first rut. In that second one, it seems there's a little bit more evening activity than you would in the first rut, and a lot of like 9 to 11. And so I'm going to kind of go all in on that all next week, really.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way, but I don't know why it is, but you don't see like some of those. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but not as often as far as those midday roamers that you see during that first rutting period.
Yeah, not as much. I mean, I do have a tendency to see more mature roamers show up that time, though, like deer I've never seen before. And at this specific spot where I'm hunting this deer I've been after, he becomes active during that time of year, that late rut. And then there's this monster that's far bigger than him. I mean, we're guessing he's, easily 150 10 point. He shows up every year in this spot around the 23rd to the 25th. You only catch him on one day. He shows up and he's gone. I've never seen him the rest of the year, but around that time frame.
Really?
Yeah.
And daylight?
Yep. He show up. It's weird. I caught him 2 years ago on one camera that I had, and I caught him last year on another one, but it was essentially around the same. It was like one was on the 23rd and the other was on the 24th or something like that. They were a day apart, but both of them were like 8:30 in the morning to the dot.
No, that's crazy. I think, Jason, I'm gonna have to come down and help you out during that time frame. You know what I mean? Like sit in the spot that the others, area, close by, so that just to make sure he doesn't come by there.
Man, I did that. Actually, Jordan, my business partner, he's been on a big buck for a couple years and just hasn't seen any sign of him this year, and he's been struggling getting on a big deer. And like in this spot, like I've sent you some pictures. Like I've got a couple big deer in here right now, and I've got 2 stand locations that are key. And I was like, dude, why don't you come in and let's just tag team it? I was like, because you know how it is. You get caught on a certain deer, and I don't want to do this again. This is the longest I've ever ran on one, but it just consumes you, if you're that diehard on hitting a goal, right? And I just want him dead. I want him to die on natural causes or by me, or, like I told Jordan, I was like, I'd much rather you kill him than somebody else kill him. But I kind of just want him gone.
Yes, you don't have to think about it.
I don't have to think about it anymore. Yeah. And that's something I changed in my plan this year. Like the last couple of years, I've been all in on that deer, and that's it. Well, this year I was like, I'm going to hunt this deer hard. And then when rifle season goes out or comes in, I'm going to go hunt another area that I've been wanting to really focus on, that I kind of play with every year, but don't focus on it. And I've stuck to that plan. And then I said, if I was to kill during rifle season, I was going to either go out and just scout, or I was going to wait till bow season to go after this deer. And it's so far the plan's worked out. So we'll have to check back in after the first year and see if the final part of my goal list is accomplished.
Well, before we get into the rifle season, so you said there's 2 like key stand locations. Why do you think those are key locations for hunting this deer?
Because they're 2 historic community rub locations that are just set up properly in the terrain. Because this area is essentially a long national forest section that runs out on a main ridge that's surrounded by ag all around it. And so these areas, just how the terrain lays, are the best areas for travel. And we don't get a lot of scrapes up here, but you'll see community scrapes, and they're pretty heavy on those. Like I found one this year that's a new one that I put a camera on, just a spot I've been overlooking for some reason. And I put a camera on this community scrape because it's a saddle on the main ridge where it comes to essentially a head. It's a north-south main ridge, but there's all these like terrain features, drainages coming up right here at this saddle to meet. And I went down there and checked it out this year. I don't know why I've been bypassing it. I checked it out, and there was a big rhodo bush right in the center of the saddle, and up under it was like 3 scrapes. And like they had opened up those 3 scrapes, and they were horning the rhodo. So I was like, man, this is an active area. And I put a camera on it in December, hunted it for 2 days, saw 2 bucks off of it in October. And then I didn't go back in there until just really last week and checked that camera just to see. And this is crazy for up here. I had 10 different bucks on that scrape.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
they were
And
doing
you
some crazy
and
stuff. I sent you the videos. Like every
yeah.
mature deer in there was getting up on his back legs, going crazy, like stuff we just don't see that much around here. And I don't know why that one scrape causes that. Like maybe it's because there's just more bucks hitting it that causes them to get that more fired up. And they really weren't working the scrape as much as they were just really wearing the licking branches out, which we see a lot of that here. They'll hit the licking branches way more than they're just sitting there just digging a hole.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. And do you feel like that deer's living nearby? Like, do you think he's bedding nearby that scrape, or do you think that that's more of kind of like a rut, like travel spot for him that he's leaving scent on?
I know late season he tends to favor this west side more because there's more rhododendron over there. Because the east side is more open big woods, not as much rhodo. So when those open big woods drop all their foliage, you can see across there pretty good. So he transitions to that area. In the summertime, he's more on the south end. He beds over on that end, but he will, like, I found this deer originally on some private land that I hunt. It's a little small piece, like about 2 miles as a crow flies. I found him there, and then by coincidence found he lived at this spot. So he does go back and forth during the rut. Because I usually was getting him over on that private land spot right there, like towards the end of gun season, like around December 1st. He would show up for a few days and run that area. And then I found that he was actually living across this road, and way down this other mountain range. So, yeah, it's weird how much they can roam here. But, yeah, he definitely calls that area home. That's his area. And there's a couple other deer in that. I mean, it's a long ridge system. I mean, we're talking 3 to 4 miles long, so it's a pretty big area in there.
Well, and I think something to note from that, and something that I see in the areas that I'm at, is like, it actually helps when the foliage comes off the trees, as far as learning a little bit where they're going to be bedding or living at, because it narrows down the areas to where they can be at. In my opinion, like, area for me, I see, especially when the weather gets bad, it's like anything that has conifer trees and giving some cover from the weather, like that tends to be, some more bedding locations and or areas that do have mountain laurel, rhododendron. They start to favor that even more than early season, when there's a bunch of, other trees, beech brush and everything that has a lot of foliage on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, speaking of weather, you mentioned that earlier. One thing I noticed around here, we're in the mountains, and I'd say we're 10 degrees cooler than the flatlands around us, but we're still not a really cold area like you guys. Like a really cold day up here these days, if you get down in the teens to single digits, that's very uncommon and really cold for here. And, here lately, even like, the 20s is not very common anymore. And I think, used to, you always think, oh, a clear, cold day, that first cold day, you're going to see a lot of movement. I don't ever see that. I think that they really hunker down on those first couple cold days, and you really see them right after that when it starts to warm up a little bit. Whereas where you're at, they're so used to the cold, they will be a little bit more active on something like that. I don't know. I mean, it's just my theory.
Well, I will say, though, that, like, I used to be so excited anytime I'd see a big snowstorm coming in. I'm like, oh, it's going to get them moving, cold front snow. And it seems like the day that comes in, that front with that, especially with precipitation, they don't move as much as the day after. The day after it starts clearing up, maybe a little sunny. Maybe it doesn't even have to be as cold, and they move more that day than they do the initial storm period. Now, obviously, there's things that can happen in any circumstances, and deer will move. But for me, I feel like that's what I've seen more so in the areas that I've spent the most time in. But that's really interesting on how that works there.
Yeah, same. There's obviously statistically things can work the other way, but just as a whole, just cameras and everything, like, so it makes me feel better when it's real cold, and I can just be like, no, I'm gonna sleep in, just because it's a strategy suggestion.
Yeah,
it's part of my strategy.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, this just isn't going to work. I need to work. I need to, get some stuff done with, the businesses, and I'll get out there once it starts to warm up and the deer start
Yeah.
moving a little bit.
Yeah. There's no reason me to be out here in the cold day. I'm waiting till it's in 50s.
Yeah. And what about the other spot, the other setup? What does that look like?
It's on that. So you got that main ridge, and then you got a little finger coming off the west side, and there's just that finger. It's pretty steep, but it has just a couple little humps in it, where the elevation changes, and there's some a good community scrape up there, and they really hit that scrape really good. I mean, if they show up on that scrape, that the one I told you I just put a camera on this year and found, they were hitting both scrapes that same day. So I feel like, power of numbers, if you have two guys covering both of those areas, like when they move, it's going to happen. And I normally don't do this, but I am going to do it this year just because, like, just over historically, like, understanding that these bucks only hit these areas every 4 or 5 day rotation, or they may hit it heavy for 2 days. I am going to sit that. I'm just going to set that scrape, is what I'm going to do. I normally wouldn't do that, but that's my plan because they're hitting it, and I feel like if I put my time in and sit there, that I'll see what I'm after. I feel.
Yeah, I mean, there's no use in overthinking it when it's telling you that seems to be the spot to go to.
Yeah, because you know how it is, man. Like we talk about this. There's areas in the mountains that will pinch deer down to using a consistent trail, but for the most part, when you watch them, they just kind of, those areas that pinch down, they'll hit that, but then everything else, they're just sporadic and just go wherever they want. So like really finding that trail that they're using to get to that scrape or to scent check that, it's really hard, I feel. Now, on those scrapes, you do have to be very cognizant of the bucks that don't come in and hit the scrape, but are scent checking it. So like I'm not a big wind guy up here because our wind's so, inconsistent. I don't think deer really use it a lot, but I do feel like they're pretty consistent with using that wind to wind check. I don't think it really dictates their travel per se as much. I think thermals do a little bit more of that, but I do feel that wind and thermals definitely will have them using one side of the scrape or the other to scent check it based on what the wind's doing that day.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And do you find that on the tops and stuff of those ridges that you do get a little bit of wind, or, from the one thing that was interesting about when I walked the area is there's not much of flat spots. Like even the tops are like kind of knife ridges where like what I'm more used to is like you get maybe a steep side hill and it might be flat for a little ways or have more rolling terrain then drop off again, where you're dealing with a lot of like kind of knife ridges per se. Do you find that you get any of the prevailing winds, on those tops like that?
Sometimes depends on if it's just like one straight ridge that runs a good ways. Like, yeah, it's a little more consistent up there than it is when you start dropping down into the, thermal hubs and the drainages and like finger ridge stuff that has a lot of different changes in terrain. Like that causes the vortexes to happen, but
Yeah,
up there on those straight
think about
ridges,
the wind's coming across and it's hitting all these different terrain features and just like doing such weird stuff, and it's like it's really tough when you start dropping off the tops to get anything consistent. It doesn't matter where you're at. Like we deal with the same thing here.
Yeah, it acts like a pinball essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
But the only thing you can rely on, and I think the deer do too, is especially your older bucks, is if you get into some of these areas that are north facing and have like spring heads or whatever, you tend to see thermals to be really consistent in there. And consistent by meaning this one spot that I took you into, those thermals in there, it doesn't matter what time of day, always are pulling downhill. I mean, we were in there in the middle of the day in August and they were pulling down.
Oh, and it was ridiculously hot and humid during that time.
But on that area, and those bucks tend to use that to their advantage because they typically, that specific spot, is really good in October when acorns are dropping because they can just go up in there and just sit there and feed in the same area and everything's pretty consistent for them.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And okay, so what about the food at that time in that area? I know you said there's some private ag nearby. Is that what a lot of time you think those are kind of like their destination food source, or do you think is there still acorns on the ground too?
We had a major mass crop this year, especially in your red oaks and chestnut oaks. But I thought we would have a lot more left by now than we do. So I know they're still there and they're using it, but I tend to see those deer. If you can find some greenery in December, they seem to be eating a lot more green, and like from a physical side, nutrition side too. I think it kind of balances out their digestive tract too. When they've been eating nothing but acorns most of the fall, like they need that green to kind of balance them out. And that's the beauty of this. This is the ag that surrounds this is all pasture ground. So, those does are going to be down there eating in that green, that grass, and so the bucks obviously. So I think it puts together a really good recipe, for a late season second rut hunt for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I see it quite a bit with like power lines, gas lines, things like that that have some green grasses and things that are growing on it, or even like swampy areas that have some different grasses and stuff in there and vines. Like they seem to. I mean, I find a lot of sheds in those areas too. So it's like that's kind of as the season gets later, it seems like they shift to be doing that. And like I agree with you. Like I do think that acorns are still I think they are still really important to it, but it seems like the green, I always remember seeing Mark Drury talk about it and not thinking it was relevant because of the land he was hunting versus what I was hunting, but it kind of is at the same time when he always talks about when the deer go back to the green and it's just what that green is might not be this beautiful field all the time. Sometimes it might be pasture land or gas lines or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have a lot of high stem camp stuff here like greenbrier because we don't do any cuts or anything. But like if you go to areas like southeastern Ohio that are just full of greenbrier, those deer wear that greenbrier out late season. And I know a couple guys up there kill a lot of big deer consistently, and they've told me that I know one guy specifically has killed like 4 or 5 200-inch deer. Lear McCoy, you've heard of him.
Yeah.
He told me every big deer he's killed, mature buck up there, when he's cut their stomach open, they're primarily full of greenbrier.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense when you see it. They're all nibbled on and yeah, I mean, Ohio is littered with greenbrier in some areas. We're actually starting to get some of it here, which we never really had greenbrier. And I was just out in an area rifle hunting, and I was coming across just one little bush here and a little vine here, and I'm like, oh no. It's good, but it's bad at the same time because you get an area that's overrun with greenbrier. It's so difficult to pass through.
Dude, yeah, that multiflora rose and stuff. I mean, you think about it though, in Ohio, like an old buck like that, he's got so much greenbrier mixed in with hardwoods, he doesn't have to travel far to eat. He can just munch on greenbrier and acorns when acorns drop, and he doesn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, it makes them super easy to kill.
Yeah,
yeah, they just stand up and eat wherever they're at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
but going back to you took a break from this deer after October and when you got into gun season there, and I want to kind of hear about what you did and kind of what led to you ended up finding some success doing that.
Yeah, so my plan was I had some out of state hunts I was doing in November, so I kind of quit hunting home. Like end of October, and I started going out of state. I hunted 2 different states here in the mountains, but then before I left on my second trip to this one state, which was like the second week of November, I had this area that I've been focused on. I've been casually scouting it and hunting it for a couple years, but it's extremely hard to get into. It's 2.5 hours to walk into it, and it's not super far. It's just really, really rugged. It's, the deer I ended up harvesting was at 4,800 feet elevation. And how I was accessing this spot is you got to come up this waterfall drainage, or it's a creek drainage that goes up, and it's just straight up, which is one of my favorite ways to access the mountains, is to go up some really gnarly creek drainage, because everything is just channeled into it. Because this place is literally, there's rock walls 30, 40 feet in sections on the side. So you can it's not easy access because you're boulder hopping and dealing with all that crap, but it just, allows you to get in there without really bumping a lot of deer. And once you get towards the top of it, there's one little bench that cuts across that essentially deer are using to connect these two fingers. And on both fingers coming down, like midway, there's a lot of evergreens there, which aren't very common for us as much as they are for you. And I was like, man, that's good doe bedding. And right there, I've always seen some big rubs. So this year I was like, well, before I go on this hunt, I'm going to take an afternoon. I'm just going to run in and put some cameras in this area. I've never put cameras in there, but I've heard through the grapevine, there's been some big deer killed in this area. One I know of was like 172. The other one was in 160s. And I was like, it's so remote and rugged. It just is a great place for a deer to get old. And I was like, I'm going to focus on that this year. So I went and dropped a regular camera in that first flat. And then up at the top, where it comes to the top of that drainage, there's a saddle right there. And all these terrain features just go into that saddle. And there's always a scrape right there on top, where that all comes together on top of that saddle. And I went in there, and that scrape wasn't quite opened up yet, but there were some big rubs that were fresh. And I opened that scrape up and put a cell cam on that, because even being as remote as it is, I guess it's so high that it gets cell reception in there. And so I went out of town, and I didn't have any cell service when I was out of state. And I was just so excited to get back and see what was on my cell cam. And then when I was leaving that hunt, as soon as I got reception, my phone just started going off with pictures, and I started looking, and I was like, oh, there was like 3 or 4 bucks using it. And there was one, it was a really good 8-point is what we thought. We had 1 or 2 pictures of him, because I share all my stuff with Jordan, my business partner. And I was like, man, that's going to be sweet. So my plan was to go in there and hunt it around Thanksgiving is when I was going to have the time. And we had some crappy weather, and then I got COVID. I came back from being out of state solo in a camp by myself, not coming in human contact. I get back from this trip and I get COVID, and don't know how, but I couldn't breathe. I attempted to go in there and hunt it one day and started the walk, and it's like, I just can't get in here. I don't have the lung capacity to do it. So I backed out. We got some crappy weather with some fog. And I could tell that it was really fogged in because I was getting my cell cam photos and it was just socked in. But even though I told my girlfriend, I was like, hey, I'm going to go hunt Thanksgiving Day. I had to be back. I told her I'd be back to cook dinner, everything we could do Thanksgiving. I'd be back around 12 or 1. And that's just the perfect recipe for setting yourself up to kill something, is like making these promises. And, but I started going in there, and it was a little warm and it was still foggy. And I was like, you know what? I'm already committed to this. I'm going to at least get up here and check this camera that I haven't been able to check to see if there's anything on that. And then I'll make a decision if the fog's, going to release enough to where I feel I can get a good hunt in. And dude, the higher I went up, the worse the fog got. It got so bad in there, because this drainage is also choked in areas heavily with rhododendron, that if you get off just a little bit, you're screwed, and it's real steep. There's one spot in here that I got to essentially climb an 8-foot wall to get up around this waterfall, because you can't go around it because the rhodo is so thick. You have to be on your hands and knees. So you got to essentially technical climb this thing, and you get up there. And I was pissed off, dude, before I even got up there. I got and turned around. My app I couldn't see anything. You know how when you're in that fog, you have your headlamp on, there's just, you don't see nothing. I couldn't see in this one section. I couldn't see 15 feet away from me. And it makes you feel small. I mean, I almost got a little anxious about it. But, and you know how when you get sweaty and you pull up your map to try to check, and your map won't work because your fingers are sweaty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was having that problem. I was just so pissed off, man. And I didn't even make it to that trail cam. I got off my coordinates, and I knew I was in the drainage I should be in, but I was in the wrong spot. And it was just rougher. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep pushing to the top. I get up to the top right about gray light, and I sit where I wanted to sit. I always hunt off the ground with a gun. And the fog was, I could see about 50 yards away in all areas, but I was covering that whole saddle where it'd be travel. And I was like, I don't know how well they're going to move in the fog, but I'm going to set it out for a while anyway. So I put on my puffy pants and changed shirts because I'd sweated so much. And I sat down and I'd opened up a spot around me, clearing the leaves around this log I was going to sit on. And then I sit down and I get organized. And I was like, I don't do a lot of blind calling at all. I just feel, especially with archery, the deer are like turkeys. They know where they can get where they should be able to see something. So blind calling really has never worked for me, or they'll come in downwind of the calling and try to scent check. And sometimes that can throw you off with archery equipment. But I was like, you know what? With all this fog in the range I have, like if anything can hear me and comes to check it out, it's going to be in gun range. So I was like, I'm going to let out a grunt. I let out, this long grunt and a couple of like, brr, brr, brr. And then I kind of scraped some leaves with my foot. And I just sat there, just like, got settled in. And about 7 minutes later, I hear brr. And I was like, was that a buck? And then I hear it again, like, brr. And I was like, oh, geez, yeah. Because I could see a buck bedding on either one of these fingers that were going off to that south side that were leading down to that other area I told you about. That was a crossing point. And so I get my gun up because I couldn't quite tell exactly where he was. And I knew in the general direction. So I got my gun pointed that way. And then I hear him again. And at this point, like I was up there to kill a good deer. I wanted to kill a mature deer. But after hearing that grunting and stuff, I just got excited. And I was like, you know what? Whatever shows up, I'm shooting, just because of the whole situation. And all of a sudden, I see this silhouette break through the fog, and I just see this monster body and like horns way above his head. And I was like, damn, I don't care what that is. Like, I'm shooting him. And he was like 35-ish yards. I shoot at 270. I put it right behind his shoulder, shot, and he never even missed a beat walking. He just kept walking. And I was like, damn, did I miss this damn thing? And he's walking, kind of coming around to catch the wind, because the wind was coming out of the north. So he was circling around me, and he came through, and I shot him again at like 20 yards in the shoulder. And this time he like kind of bucked up a little bit, but kept walking. Yeah. And then he stopped at 15 with his head straight up. And I was like, dang. And I put it on him again. And here's the funny part, man. So I was leaving the house, and I had 3 bullets in my gun. And I said, well, man, I don't need to grab any more bullets. I ain't going to shoot anything more than 3 times. So here I am with this last bullet in my gun. And I was like, he was sitting there. I knew I hit him for sure the second time in the shoulder, just how he reacted and everything. And I was like, do I shoot him again and run out and go Winchester and don't have any bullets? And he runs off, and then, he's just wounded, and I don't have anything to make a final fatal shot. And I was like, well, hell with it. I was like, I'm going to go ahead and put another one in him. So I hit him again in the shoulder that time. And this time it got his attention, and he like ran over the hill. Then I pretty much sure I heard him crash. And, but I sit there and I was like, dang, man, I don't have any bullets. I'm not 100% sure this deer is dead. So I called Jordan. This is like 7:30 in the morning. And I called Jordan, and he doesn't answer. And I call him like twice again. And he's like, hey, what's up? My phone's vibrating. I'm still asleep. And I was like, man, I just shot a monster. He's like, you kidding me? And I was like, dude, why the hell would I call you at 7:30 in the morning? I'm not going to bullshit you and say that.
On Thanksgiving Day.
On Thanksgiving Day. And I told him the situation, and I was out of bullets. And he was like, oh, dude, that's so funny. And so I kind of just collected my thoughts and just waited a minute, gave it about 20 minutes. Then I walked to where I originally shot him, and I saw some blood there, and I was like, that's good. And I kind of walked down to where I thought I'd see him and didn't see him. I went back up and sit there for a second and thought give it a little bit more time, because I didn't want to bump him if he wasn't dead. And I walked back down there, and I'm following this blood, man, and really good blood trail. And the blood trail kind of stopped a little bit, and I was looking around. I was like, that deer's got to be around here somewhere. And I couldn't see it. And I was like, damn, that's weird. And then I looked down, and I was like, oh, man, there's an antler right there. And I was like, oh, shit, that's the damn deer. He had fallen on this hill, and he had slid down the hill, and his body went completely up under this log parallel. So you couldn't – his body blended in with that log, and all I could see was that one piece of horn sticking out. So yeah, but he was a great buck. He his left main beam was 24 inches and he had like 12, 13-inch G2s, I believe. But he was on his right side, he was missing about a third of his main beam. He'd broken that off. It looked like early in the year just because of how it was broke.
Mhm.
He hadn't done it fighting, but just honestly a tank of a deer. I didn't expect to. He ended up being the 8 point we had on camera, but he wasn't an 8. He actually was a 5 point on his left side. He kind of crab clawed out, and then that right side was broken off. So, um, but just a stellar buck, man. Like something I wouldn't have thought that I would have killed, like just going in like that. I mean, the body on that thing, I'm pretty sure he was pushing 250 before
Oh my gosh.
just I don't know. I'll remember that deer coming out of that fog for the rest of my life. It was pretty intense and just awesome experience. And then by that time, the fog had lifted too a little bit. And I was sitting up there on top of this mountain looking at this deer, and I look out over the valley, and all the fog is settled in the valley, and you just see these mountaintops above it. It was one of the most picturesque spots I've ever been able to harvest a deer. And there's been so many times I've been in areas like that just where that puts you in awe, just how beautiful it is, but I never see anything up there. Like you always dream about that magical, place. And it was just so cool how it all came together. And, yeah. And then obviously the work starts, man. Like one thing you don't do if you need help is kill something on Thanksgiving Day because everybody's usually tied up.
Yeah, that yeah, and then you have the time crunch on needing to get back and cook dinner, which, at that point I'm sure you're in your head, you're just ecstatic and you're just like, I just want to celebrate shooting this deer, but it's like, all right, I made these commitments and, girlfriend at home probably doesn't, she's excited for you, but that's all right. Let's transition to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah. Try to realize what work we got ahead of us. Cause you don't drag them out up here, man. Like you're packing that sucker out, man. And this place it's so sketchy, dude. Like with the amount of leaves that fall and the amount of rocks and the amount of like, you and I've talked about this, the amount of branches that are up under the leaves that always run downhill that like, I'm pretty agile as far as walking around in uneven terrain, but I go in that place, I'm falling at least 3 or 4 times. And so like I'm factoring that in my head too. Packing this animal out by yourself, man, like you put that load on your back and you got to think about what you just came up to come out, man. Like it can be a very dangerous situation. Like you can snap a leg in there pretty easy, or fall and get hurt, man. So I was having to think about all that stuff and I was like, damn, I'm just going to take my time. I mean, but it all worked out. And then I was
Yeah.
having to factor in I had COVID lungs still, so that didn't make it any easier either.
No, that's what I was just gonna add. That does not help. And it's funny you did a video that we had posted on the Timber Ninja page of you as you were packing them out, and just hearing your voice could tell that you couldn't breathe very well the whole time that you were talking on it.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. I wouldn't give it. I like it when it ends that way, man. But I ended up getting it out. I took out the hindquarters, all the tenderloins, and the head, and I left the front shoulders and neck in there. And I got all that the first pack out. I got it out and was able to get home by 1 o'clock. So I fulfilled my Thanksgiving commitments, and then I hiked in the next day and got the front shoulders and the neck meat. So it took me 2 trips. I ran out of space. I think like I don't know how much I was packing. It was heavy. I ain't gonna lie. But I feel I could have got all of it out in one trip, but I was just running out of space.
What pack were you using?
I have a Exo Mountain K3, 4800, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I don't really stuff in my bag. I put all my meat on the meat shelf and you just run out of space, man, even with a whitetail. I mean, if you bone them out, but I just didn't take the time to bone it out. I probably should have. But I just couldn't get that extra meat on that pack.
Yeah. Yeah, now that's hard altogether with your other gear, which you're pretty minimalist, but still like having your other gear and all that stuff on your pack, and then trying to come out with in a deer of that size. That's a whole nother animal there too. That's kind of like packing out a mule deer almost.
It is, dude. I mean, and also like in that terrain, like I always strap my gun in my pack, and I was cussing so hard coming out because my gun and the antlers kept getting caught up in rhododendron. So like I love my gun so much. I have a Kimber 270 that's super light, but it's got a 22-inch barrel, and that 22-inch barrel on a pack is not fun in the roto, man. So I'm building a new rifle this season. I'm gonna build me a 350 Legend with like one of those 16-inch barrels. I think that's gonna be a really good. Actually, I've been talking to your brother about the gun I want and like putting together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Um, so I think that 16-inch barrel is going to be key for mountain hunters. I mean, that's Nathan's using a similar. He's using a Ruger Scout rifle or something in a 450 Bushmaster, and he seems to like that short barrel a lot for getting around in the mountains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you're not shooting long distances or anything, you don't really necessarily need the long barrel on it there. It's more about being agile and being able to move through. I mean, I can't even tell you. I don't think I've ever shot a buck in Pennsylvania with a rifle over 150 yards, and most of them have been within 100. My biggest deer was within 20 yards. So it's like, you get in some of those spots, you're not really stretching out that much.
No, man. I mean, I've been here for 14 years, and I think I've killed around 8 to 10 bucks or 8 to 10 deer with a gun up here. And literally, dude, they all are under 50 yards. And
Yeah.
I think, I mean, one, it's the area where they're going to be is not going to open. It could be very open anyway. But also, it's like my mindset. I bow hunt so much that all my setups, I think we were talking about this, I believe,
Yeah.
so long ago,
Yeah.
is like I still have the bow mindset of how I set up with a gun. And so I never even look at these areas where I could shoot 150 yards. So yeah, like I think that 350 Bushmaster, I mean that 450 Bushmaster and that 350 Legend, they're supposedly capable of 200 yards. Which, if you're having to shoot a whitetail over 200 yards, are we really hunting anymore? Like you're not getting close. I mean, getting close is what really makes it exciting.
Well, we were talking about that. I think it was on a different call where we were discussing our setups for gun season, and that was the same thing with me. Like most of my setups were like, I was like, man, I'm getting too close here. Like, he's gonna fill up my whole scope when I pull it up. As far as if one were to follow the script, and but at the same time, it's like that's where, especially, well, not I mean, you're in your scenario, you're not getting a lot of pressure, but still, they tend, whether they have pressure or not, they still tend to go with the cover and be in those areas. That's one thing I've learned is like in areas that don't have. I've hunted a few areas that don't have a lot of hunting pressure, and they still do that.
Yeah,
they still stick to cover and try to survive like deer do.
Yeah. Well, I think too, I was going to add to that. Like, I think there is a way that you can get a long shot. Like, to your point, if you're in an area of big open hardwoods where you can look at a ridge line that's coming down like 150 200 yards out through the open hardwoods, but has like a rhododendron thicket next to it, you can catch them on that edge. Maybe that's like, because they may not be in the thick, but they're right next to the thick most of the time when you see them.
Yeah. Or like in a scenario for us in Pennsylvania where you could shoot further is if you get up high in a tree and you're overlooking like a clear cut that's like 3 to 8 years old, the trees might be 7-8 foot tall, and they feel like they're in thick cover, but you can see above it, and if they hit like a little opening or a logging trail out there a little ways, you can still be able to get a shot off. So that's a little bit of a different scenario. But no, that was an awesome story. I remember getting that picture on Thanksgiving, and that deer's one, it's an absolute tank, and just like the picture you took of it laying there on the ground with the mountains in the background and the fall, like, man, I can't think of a better place to kill a deer.
No, I was pumped, and I'm not big. Like, I've never really had any of my deer scored. Jordan loves scoring stuff. Like, I'm not interested in the total score, but there are certain things I like to know the measurements of. Like, I like measurements of main beam length. Like that's something that's always cool to me. I like a deer that's got long main beams, and I like the G2 length and mass. That's the only thing I really care about. But Jordan put a tape on him, and like even with that broken, from a numbers perspective, even with that broken right main beam, I think he still scored him at like 135. So he would have been somewhere up around 140s. I think if he was fully intact, somewhere close. Just
Man, yeah,
outstanding
that's
buck
a dang
for
good
here.
deer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for here.
no, I mean, really anywhere.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about him, we have some deer that were brought in here. They say the old timers say from like Wisconsin and the Midwest, and then we have our pure mountain genes, and you kind of see that. Like I've killed bucks here that look like they come from the Midwest, got that same Midwest looking frame, but then our mountain bucks, they're weird. Like nothing on them straight. Like it's all, I call it spindly. Like all the tines kind of wave, the main beams have some crooks and waves. And whatever reason, Jordan made this point the other day. I don't know if it's scientific or not, but a lot of our mountain bucks, all their points go forward. And he was like, yeah, it's because they're always walking with their head down when they're going downhill. So, gravity pulls them that way. And it's funny. You start seeing some of these like pure mountain genetic deer, they all do go forward like that a lot of times. But he was pure mountain genetics. Like all of his tines just had some twists to them and stuff. It was really cool. I mean, he's a hardcore dude that's just like very passionate about hunting mountain deer. Like he definitely fits my, my standards. And I don't know what it is, man, about me. I can never kill these pretty deer, like these beautiful, like this symmetrical, everything looks good. Like everything I kill is either missing an eye or he's broken or going downhill or something like that. Like I've got 2 one-eyed deer that I've killed up here that were mature. And they all have something going on. I killed another one. One of those one-eyed deer had a broken main beam. This one's broken. Like I just can't kill one that's just perfect. But
well, they're talking about the way that the antlers on his mountain deer like kind of have these curves and waves to them. Mason, my cousin Mason, has this. He calls them acorn deer, and he goes, I can tell whenever a deer comes from a heavily acorn like big woods area. He's like, they just have this certain. That's the way in Pennsylvania at least looks like, because we have areas areas I hunt that have no oak trees that are all browse, and then there's areas with acorns, and he's like, those are acorn deer when they have these like goofy looking kind of like just waves, almost like the wind was blowing and it adds a little wave to the rack sometimes and the beams.
Yeah. Well, it's like our trees, man. Like our trees on these mountains that are windswept, they all crook, like especially chestnuts. Yeah. Chestnuts get big crooks to them, which, it makes it hard for setting up a lot of your traditional tree stands. And because for us, because like saddle platforms and, lock-ons that have that post, you sometimes can't get them in those crooks or those certain angles, like because the bar will be like that. There's no way to get that platform to level out, so it makes it hard for setups.
Yeah.
As of today.
That's all you'll add to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not allowing you to say anything else on that.
Right.
No, that's super cool. Yeah, we'll you still got some hunting time left. I got some hunting time. I'm gonna go to Ohio in January with a muzzleloader, do some late season stuff there. I was planning on going with Johnny, but he just told me the other day that he might be in Iowa during that time, so I don't know if he'll be there or not. So who knows where he'll be? He'll be somewhere in the country.
He's like a gypsy.
He is.
I call it him Prime Time. That's my nickname for him is Prime Time. But I think gypsy's a better for him because he called me the other night, Sunday night, and I was on the phone with Chris Perino, and Johnny sent me a text. He's like, "Call me right back," and I was like, "All right, I'll call you when I get off phone." I got off phone. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, just talking to a buddy. Gonna be hunting here." He's like, "You want to run to West Virginia with me for a muzzleloading hunt for the next 2 days?" I was like, "Dude, I can't just up and do things like you because he hasn't stopped all year, man."
No.
And he
called me the same thing.
Yeah, no, he said he's like, I just called Beau, and Beau's not want to go, so he's like, "You want to go?" And I was like, "Man, I can't just up and drive 8 hours tomorrow for 2 days. I got other things I need to do." But because my goal, I was just wanting to try to kill more deer than Johnny this year, and I would have been close. Like, I did a November muzzleloader hunt in Virginia, And I missed a really good 8 point at 15 yards on my muzzleloader, which I'm like, still, I don't understand how it happened. But I would have been close, man. If I'd have gotten that one and I'm going to kill this one at the end, I'd have been close.
Well, yeah, he called me and the same thing, and apparently he called me, my brother, you, and he's like, "Hey, I want to go to West Virginia," and I was just with him the night before, so I was just with him, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to go. I'm gonna go to West Virginia for a couple of days," and I'm like, "Johnny," I said, "I've been hunting a lot, and like I need to work, like I need to get back into a schedule and everything," and he's like, okay, well, I'll be down there for a couple days, and I'll be in Ohio over the weekend if you want to come down there to shotgun season. I'm like, man, I can't. Oh yeah, I need a couple weeks of breathing room here, and he's just like the Energizer Bunny with it, and just goes. And man, he's good at what he does.
No, I know. I mean, I know you and I both have hunted really hard, but we really haven't held a candle to Johnny, and he's still he's got that motivation. There's no he's like Rocky. He ain't heard the bell, you know.
No. Yeah, he'll never let me live it down. Where like it was like 6-7 years ago, it was in the early phases of knowing Johnny when he wanted me to go to Ohio with him, like January 24th, and he's like, "Want to go down and hunt late season?" I was like, "Johnny, honestly, I'm done. Like I'm ready to be done for the year." And he's like, "What do you mean? You still got a tag there?" And he's just he's on me. He's like, you can't quit until all the seasons are closed. I'm like,
well, no. I mean, there's a reason he's like a 1%er. You know, it's just that effort.
Yeah, 100%.
No, I mean, I think, you know, like our whole pro staff team that we put together this year, like everybody's like kind of that diehard, which I get really excited about. Yeah, and everybody's had a great year, man. I'm super stoked about all the hard work people put in, and they're reaping the rewards, you know.
Yeah, oh, most definitely. We definitely have a really dang good team of product testers. You know, when you guys got like Johnny and Nathan and the rest of the guys that are like spending as much time in the woods that they are and have hunted for as long as they have, they're going to tell you what works and what doesn't work and know what, you know, and then like the both of us and the rest of the team, like there's a lot of experience and time spent in the woods to get to know that. You can't go out in the woods with a product for a couple days and be like, oh, this works or it doesn't work. It's like, no, you need to try it in different conditions. And, you know, the trees that you hunt are different than the trees that I hunt. And that, you know, that's what we're putting into the products and trying to make stuff that, you know, I like, you've said this before, but it's like, if you make something that works in the place like you just talked about, you're climbing up through waterfalls and screeing cliffs and all this stuff, that's the worst case scenario for a whitetail hunter.
Yeah.
Now, if you make products that work in those environments, they're going to work in farm country. They're going to work in other places. So it's a good a good testing grounds.
Yeah, I mean, you're making purpose-built products at the end of the day. I mean, you think that's the way you should, but I mean, you can just look at what products come to market from companies and like how many recalls or like generations they have. Like you can tell they didn't put that amount of field work in. And, you know, in my opinion, like whatever people can beat me up about this, you know, like I think our team is very rounded with a lot of experience in the field. And we really practice what we preach about hunting hard, and it shows in our products. Like, you know, we've had these sticks out for 4 years now, and we've had like 6 failures out of thousands sold. You know, like failures are going to happen, but things work. Like our stuff cams, our platform cams, because it took us 2 years to develop it. You know, like it costs a lot of money to go through that developmental stage, but you end up with the right product. And if you compare other companies out there and see, like, you can see who does that and who doesn't. I mean, the only 2 people that really come to mind for me that make products that I can tell do that is Lone Wolf Custom Gear and Dan Infalt and the Beast Gear. Like their products, both of those teams are hardcore passionate hunters. You can tell it in their products. And, you know, that's really what I see for, you know, from our company, like, and why we do what we do. We don't do it necessarily just for money. Like it's great to make money, but like and I know everybody else involved is very passionate about what we produce, and, you know, and we've spent the time in the woods. It's the law of 10,000. You can't reach excellence unless you've done something either 10,000 hours or 10,000 times. Like, you got to put the time in. Like, and that time, and no offense to anybody, that time of learning what products actually work in the real woods isn't time put in sitting over a food plot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and really, it comes down to being in, and like you just, what I think what you're saying there too is like walking in a nice groomed path and going in and setting up in a tree that you've set up in 1,000 times like that. Yeah, that's, your product should work in that conditions. It's like, okay, now you have to go through rhododendron or mountain laurel or clear cut and briars and get through this spot and then get there and figure out how to efficiently get up this tree. When you're close, you think a deer might be bedding over there. Get up there quietly, slip in. This tree might not be exactly what you think it is, but can you make it work and still be comfortable and be able to sit it out for that period of time? And that's, and again, that's from the beginning why you and I connected so much, and I wanted to be a part of this team and building this stuff, because we were on a call before doing this of like looking at products going forward, and we're working on a cycle of going to be working on a cycle of 3-4 years out of products, because we have too many ideas and not enough time to be able to implement them and build these things. So it's like building these goals and getting testing years and time in the field within it before it comes out. You've been criticized a bunch for some of the products that people are requesting that are just taking a long time to come out, and it's like, that's because you find something that's not working exactly like you want. You could release it, but it's like, let's keep it and refine it until it gets to satisfaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's always easy to do something that's already been done and like just kind of change it a little bit, but like you got to find like what's a problem in a current product that you can make better for most consumers that would see that's a problem too. And like, it takes time, man. I mean, like, the beauty that I find with our company is like, we have enough ideas that we're not going to run out of ideas. I don't think. Well, we just don't have the money to execute all the ideas that we have, whereas a lot of people, if they haven't put that time in, they run out of ideas pretty early, and they end up buying ideas from other people and stuff like that and just rushing them to the market. And like, that's not the way I want to run a business. It's like, it's not the way I want to hunt either. I don't want somebody to tell me, hey, I got a 180-inch deer on my land. You want to come shoot it? Like, that just wouldn't mean much to me. Like, I get the satisfaction out of the grind of doing anything more than I do the end result, to be honest with you. It's like hunting deer. I love these deer so much. Like, I feel bad when I shoot them sometimes at the end. It's just because like that dude's, he's thugged his life out to live, and then I come in here and whack him. And not to say like I'm against shooting him, but it's like sometimes I wish I could just throw him back, like a fish. And it's like, but the same thing, it's like with the gear. Like, I love the whole process of testing. It's like the sketchy part of testing, man. Like, we've got some new sticks we're working on, for instance, and like, I had one fail that I knew was going to fail this year when I was out hunting, man. And that would make your butthole pucker up when you're like halfway up a tree and all of a sudden the stick bends and you slide down. You're like, oh, am I going for a ride or not? And, but when you're doing this stuff, like, I mean, I think a lot of that, for me being a rock climber is like, I think very cautiously of how I climb. And I think about like, if something was to kick, like I'm going to be okay. So you really have to think about that. And, it's just so fun to starting this, having the Timber Ninja, man, like we're at this point now, like being able to walk in the woods and pretty much everything I'm using to mobile hunt is something that we've created. And that just makes me so stoked, man. Like from the platform to the sticks to now the backpack and all that stuff. And I do get criticized because I like to show people what we're doing. As long as we're far enough advanced where somebody, one of these copycats can't go ahead and copy and paste what we're doing. I like to keep, our customers informed, like of, hey, this is what we're working on, and bringing them into that process. And some of them, they get excited and they get a little irritated. It's like, when's this coming out? When's this coming out? But it's like, we're not going to bring it out until we feel like we've executed everything that we feel like we can. But you're still going to have some people that don't like what you have, like it's not right for them, which is beautiful because we have so many choices these days.
Yeah, and exactly right. Like it's purpose built, and some of the stuff's just not going to be right for everybody, and that's the nature of it. And yeah, it's funny, we have these internal conversations about showing gear we're working on, like from both me and Jason's perspectives. We want to show the customers like what we're working on and get feedback as we're going, and kind of create that buzz around it and see what do we think is going to work? Is this worth, do other people want this like we want it, and that type of idea, thinking of it from the business perspective and being able to kind of pull those curtains back that I feel a lot of companies have up. The problem that you run with that is you can have companies that have a way bigger budget and can produce something overseas much faster and be able to, it's not going to be as good of a product, but they can still push something out and, necessarily beat in a market, just because we don't have that capacity from a time and money standpoint at this point to be able to put those things out extremely fast. So we've had to be kind of, show what we can, but some things have been a little bit more tight-lipped than others until we can get ourselves protected.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. I mean, when you're doing the thorough prototyping and everything, like a product, a lot of people are like, how does something end up so expensive? It's not just what it costs to make it. It's how much money you put into it to get it to that point. Like, with our ledge, like I forgot how many prototypes we had made of that thing, but it was multiple thousands of dollars of just prototypes. Like, because when you're dealing with metal and stuff, you make one run. If it doesn't work, you got to scrap that one and go build a new one, So it's like, that ends up being costly. It's like sticks, like prototyping a new stick out of aluminum, you're going to be looking at, just from a machine shop charge for just one stick, you're going to be looking at, around $300. And like, I was so confident on this one design that I was like, yeah, just run us 6 of them and I'll send 2 to 3 different people. Well, we ran them and they definitely failed. So I just wasted all that money, but we went back to the drawing board, made it right, and now we've got a solid new stick, but yeah, it's crazy, like the stuff that we've made, man. Like I was telling you, I was taking some new sticks out yesterday and get to the tree and realize I didn't have my stick strap, that magnetic stick strap that goes onto the saddle. And I was like sitting there fumbling around, figuring out how I was going to get up the tree without that. So you get so accustomed to using something that you've made, you don't realize when you have it how good it is for you until you don't have it, and you're like, oh shit, like this sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I run into that. But it's just so fun, man. Like I love designing this stuff, and I hate running the business, but I love the design work.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you need, is somebody that can, do the business aspect of it and then just work on the design. I mean, that would be the ultimate goal. Just build products.
Yeah. I mean, we're putting that in place. We're hiring a part-time CFO this year, and to cut our costs on our machine goods, we're looking at buying a percentage into a machine shop so we can kind of reduce those costs, because we definitely are invested in innovation and making our stuff in the US, and that's going to be, starting to put our money where our mouth is, I feel is important.
Yeah. And it's so difficult, and not to complain about it, but for anybody listening, like you look at Timber Ninja products are expensive, and it's like, one, like Jason just talked about a lot of the reasons, the design and the prototyping and everything that goes into it, but just the cost to make those things in the US and have them done right is extremely expensive. I can promise you there's not these giant margins that we're all, sitting fat and pretty off of, making profits off of these things. I can tell you that for free, but it's hard to do it, but that's, in our opinion, that's the right way to be able to do it, especially when you're dealing with something where someone's life is, associated and tied to some of the products that you're making. And that's also why the educational aspect of it, and what we're trying to do, and we started doing this year, but going forward, continuing the education on not just education on products and selling products, but education on hunting and mobile hunting and elevated hunting, to do it safely and do it effectively, so that you don't have, even if there was a failure of some sort, that you can get out of that relatively unscathed and still be able to go home and be fine about it. And that's super important to both, I know, to both of us. And we talked about that a little bit in the podcast we did back in February with both of our backgrounds having, fall protection and safety backgrounds.
Oh yeah. I mean, talking about the profit difference, man, I became friends with a guy that makes some hunting products that are, not whitetail hunting products, but they're machine products. And he was doing it all in the US and running everything around to different machine shops to be anodized, to be etched, all this stuff. And then he took his products over to China, and he was trying to convince me to do that, which is just not going to happen for us. And even though like our business advisors are like, oh, you should look at taking this overseas, you increase your margin. But he was telling me, he's like, I'm making 8 times the money off my product, and it comes to my warehouse fully packaged, everything. Whereas, we got to go source packaging from one company, like all these different things to make it work. But I will, when we started this, we put it out there, we were going to be American made as much as we can. We're not cutting corners, and we're going to stick to that. Cause it's just, I'm a man of my word. If I say I'm going to do something and I'm going to stick to it, like I'm going to stick to that, even if it maybe isn't the best for us financially. That's what's important to me. Like, there's people I know of, like, they're saddle making, they're claiming a US made saddle, but they're importing their saddle bags in from China to be put onto the American made saddle and calling it American made. Like, we're never going to pull that kind of bullshit. Like, it's just not ever going to be part of our MO.
Yeah. No. And I want to urge anybody, listening to, definitely sign up for the newsletter, the email newsletter at timberninjaoutdoors.com. And then also reach out to us, via email. There's like a box or whatever, contact us thing there with ideas or anything. I mean, we're open books on these things and like to be connected with the people that are actually doing the hunting and spending the time and spending their hard-earned money on products, like from a feedback perspective or anything else. Like we love to hear that kind of stuff. And that's what's cool about being a small company to be able to do that.
Yeah, we can be nimble. I mean, like for our new sticks we're coming out with, like, we built the original sticks I built based on what I wanted, right? And, we did extremely well with it. It was the first carbon fiber, really, besides a climbing stand, it was the first carbon fiber stick or stand or anything in the industry besides when Old Man made the climbing stand, which is great. It's a great stick. A lot of people love it. It's done really well. But like, we have also taken the feedback we've gotten from consumers and applied that now to the second, new stick we're going to come out with. So, that feedback from everybody is great, but you also, like, everybody's willing to give you some feedback and what they would do if it was their company, right? So you got to just take all these comments and essentially funnel them down into, a spreadsheet and kind of like prioritize, like, what am I hearing the most, right? All right. Yeah. I need more foot room. Okay, cool. All right. It's not that hard. We'll make some more foot room here, like little things like that. I need something that stacks better, more compact. Cool. Yep. That makes sense for us too. So but doing this one little spin off for one guy that one sticks or whatever, like, we are accommodating some stuff for the one stickers on this stick, but we're not that custom where we can make one-offs for everybody. There are people out there who do that, like, the dude out on a limb, he'll make you a custom stick, no problem, but you're gonna pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah. But Jason, first of all, I didn't think we were going to tell everybody about, new stick coming, but, I guess we let the cat out of the bag there a little bit.
Oh, well, yeah. I was just rambling.
No, it's all right. We're far enough along with that's not a big deal at all. But no, that's what's again, what's cool about building these products and talking to people. And like you said, there is definitely, having to go through the amount of messages or, thoughts on gear and trying to find out what is the most common trends and things that want to be changed. Can't make one-offs of everything, or, there's certain things that I would like that probably nobody else wants, and you can't, please everybody from that speak. But I'm really, really pumped on those new ones coming out. And like I said, the ones that have been out for 4 years, they've been out for 4 years in the same iteration for a reason, because they're good. It's just trying to continually push that envelope and continually make better.
Innovation, education, conservation. That's the 3 pillars of us. And, we're going to own up to that every day we can. Yeah. I mean, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming out this year. I'm excited, and years to follow are looking pretty good too. We'll see.
Yeah. Most definitely. And we are planning on being at some more events and stuff this year, so people can come check out the products and do that. And any of the Timber Ninja products, if you're not sure about it, you can order it, and was it 30 days that you can turn around and return it if it's not what you thought. So if you wanted to try something out, that's another method, which I don't know if I think we've only had a couple, if anything, that have been returned, and it was mostly because of sizing.
Yeah, we've had
saddles,
sizing stuff on saddles. That's it. But yeah, we've always had that out there. But like, I mean, honestly, out of the thousands of orders that we've done over the last few years, like honestly, like return wise, I bet you it's less than 20.
Yeah. Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I look at, like from a failure rate. Like there's no way around a product not failing at some point when you sell enough of something. Like I don't think there's anybody that has a clean record of nothing ever going wrong, but I feel very happy on the percentage of our, failure rate, for the the stick's been the one that's out there the longest, and I'm real happy with that. Never had to do a recall or, didn't make any changes to it really. It's just what we released is what we still have, and like cost a lot getting to that point, but that's the way we need to run the business, I feel.
Yeah.
I don't want our consumers being our product testers. I can tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for coming on again, Jason. I really appreciate it, and I urge everybody that is listening to go follow along at Timber Ninja Outdoors wherever you're at on social media, YouTube, and then definitely the email list is a big one. We try to put out information there, and whenever we come out with new products, doing some live Q&As and some different things there to try to get back and answer your questions about products. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. The newsletter email list is highly important, I think, if you want to stay up to date, because we are amongst that group going to start sharing a lot more along our process of getting these products to the finish line, kind of giving people a sneak peek. I think is good, because everybody feels like they're a part of the process. I like that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, cool. Thank you again, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.